Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we're going to be counting down the 5 biggest issues with World of Warcraft Legion. Before we do so, I want to make two small caveats actually. The first one is that by making this list, it does not mean that I'm quitting the game, or I don't enjoy Legion, or I hate Blizzard, or something like that. In fact, it's quite the contrary. If I did any of those things, I wouldn't care enough to make this video. I'm making this video because I do care about Legion, I care about World of Warcraft in general, and I want to see it go forward in the best possible way. The second thing is that while these may be the biggest problems with Legion, it does not mean that they are entirely and massively a problem. So when I give each point, I'm also going to give the devil's advocate position, the position that says, well, here's why these things may not actually be a big issue for everyone. So anyway, if I missed any or anything you just simply don't agree with, I'm sure there'll be plenty. Let me know in the comments and let's get right into it. So before we start the proper list, I did want to add a number 6 to the list, as I often do. And the reason it's number 6 and not in the list properly is because I don't know anything about PvP. Okay, I literally don't at all. So I'm probably going to say some stupid things here, but I just want to address it because a lot of people seem to have problems with PvP in general in Legion and Balance. But I feel like every time I listen to people talk about PvP, it's the same arguments that we've been hearing over and over again for the last 12 years, only, now morphed to things that have changed in Legion. So if you're not aware, for some reason, the changes that were incurred in Legion are, of course, the honored talents being added, a lot of like utility and stuff like that removed overall, and then stat templates for balance, like no more gear, scaling and stuff like that. Stats don't come from gear. So when I see those things, I think they are a very, very good addition to PvP. On top of the honor system, which gets new people into PvP, I feel like having the talents there is very good for diversity, right? Something people were previously complaining about in pretty much every other expansion since TBC. And stat template for balance is another thing everybody was complaining about, right? Like when you play another PvP game, like say League of Legends, you don't get to choose what stats your character has, do you? You play the one that is appropriate, right? And you play it the way the game is balanced around. So I'm really confused how anybody could say the game isn't balanced. Now I'm very aware it isn't balanced. So obviously something in this system pool is not working properly. And I think that's the truth of it. Now, once again, I'm saying this out of complete ignorance, but I don't see how having these, like, for the first time ever, let me put it this way, for the first time ever, we can balance characters outside of PvE. Let that sink in. All right. First time ever outside of PvE. So how is it possible that this isn't a huge step forward? I have no idea. But anyway, that is one of the major complaints that people have about Legion, PvP in general. And I've seen it firsthand. There's a lot of people not playing, like 40% less people from last season or something like that. So anyway, that's just number 6. Let's move on to number 5. Number 5 overall problem with Legion is Mythic plus dungeons. Now, I feel like this one barely belongs on the list because a lot of people, at least people who play the game seriously, recognize that the Mythic plus system has tremendous upside. But a lot of the problems tied to it are also tied to other things, especially other things in this list. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But regardless, the main complaints that people have with Mythic plus is that there is no type of lockout. You literally can just leech off other people's keys for the rest of time and get a lot of gear from it. And I think that's the main issue with Mythic Plus, is that the gearing can be comparable to actual raids. Now, this is actually what they intended, so keep that in mind. But it doesn't work as well as they'd hoped, right? Because especially in the first week of Emerald Nightmare, if you guys followed that progression race, so many people were just so vastly overgeared because they were just doing nothing but Mythic Pluses for hours and hours and hours. They're actually overgearing the raid, and that's not good for the game overall, not good for raid progression, and it kind of alienates another type of audience here, where people who love to raid only but don't have time to do Mythic Plus. And I'm kind of in the boat for both sides, really. I love dungeons so freaking much, but I also don't, expect to go into dungeons 890 item level and still get declined for these groups because people are taking them way too serious. So overall, I actually love the Mythic Plus system. It's easily my favorite thing in Legion, but there has a few small issues with it that could be addressed in the future. Especially, I think they could do better with the whole either lockout system or the 3 chest system. I also don't feel like you get enough gear from them sometimes. Like doing like a plus 12 the other day, and we got to the end and one person got gear. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just unfortunate. I don't like it. I liked it better in the beta where all 5 people got a piece, but I guess that would only, expand upon the issues we just discussed. A lot of people also have problems with how the pre-made group finder and carrying works for Mythic Pluses, but like I said earlier, I think that really is indicative of a social issue within the game. It's not a problem with the system as much as it is just kind of something that could be tweaked or fine-tuned. For example, if the lockout system was addressed, and I'm not really sure what they could change, but you wouldn't have people just sitting here carrying Ma plus whatever all day. And that's kind of the other issue, is doing the dungeons over and over again. People say like, oh, this gets boring, but I really don't see this as a valid criticism. This is how the game has always worked. You have to do the content many, many times, and doing it over and over and over again, that's your choice. You can choose to stop doing that. It's really a problem with things we're going to talk about in the future here, like Titanforging and stuff, but in general, I think the system is really good. I kind of preferred the challenge mode system just because it scaled your gear. It felt a lot more applicable, and I would also like to see more affixes kind of come into the rotation. It seems kind of odd to me that we've already gotten to a point where everybody knows exactly what the easy affixes are, and everybody hates the horrible affixes. So if they could address that, some small changes to the affix system, or maybe even the lockout system, then I think we have a very good product on our hands in Mythic Plus. Number 4 is going to be spec balance, class balance, and changes to these things. This is something that a lot of people complain about, and really a large vocal community exists for change in the game and balance in general. But I just can't help but not care. Honestly, I really struggle to have any empathy for any of these people who are complaining. The number one reason that people are complaining about some classes and specs is because they simply don't like the way it plays. Almost every spec in the game is competitive to the degree that it was in previous expansions. Think about it, in the 12 plus years that we've had PvE, balance in general, there's never been perfect balance, all right? In fact, the Dark Legacy comic kind of shined light on this a while ago. Even if every spec was simmed perfectly to within 1% of each other, people would still find something to complain about. And it's really unfortunate that this has become the case. So to me, a lot of people were saying like, oh, I don't like Warlock. It's just, you just don't like it. Okay, that's not going to change, unfortunately. So it's probably time to find something that you do like. And that's the way I look at a lot of the issues with this, with class balance and changes to the classes and specs. I didn't like what they did to Holy Paladin, but it's what, now 5 months in, I've adapted and I've become pretty good at it, to be fair. So, the massive changes come every expansion. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that. They think like, oh, well, they changed it. I was playing it because I liked it the way it was. Now they changed it. I don't like it. Then it's probably time to find something new. You had almost a full year of beta to understand these changes. And sure, a lot of the feedback that was given perhaps wasn't implemented, but that's not how this game works, okay? So anybody who's complaining about the actual changes, I really have no sympathy for. In terms of balance, I totally understand it now because, especially with Mythic plus 5-mans, it becomes much more difficult to balance specs and classes properly. For example, you have a great example with Fire Mage. They are, or were, prior to 7.1.5, one of the best spellcasters for both. And that's a bit silly. I think a better way to look at it is when you have a spec like BM, Hunter. They synergize really well with 5-mans. They didn't even do as much AoE as Survival or Marksman, but they have a lot of great utility. They're flexible, and they do everything that you want in a 5-man very well. Whereas Marksman was the better single target spec. They had incredible burst, and they still had very good cleave as well. I think that's what you're aiming for, and you're not going to get it. All right, one way or the other, especially when you tie the classes and specs to these artifacts so heavily, people are never going to be happy. Never, ever, ever. They could do whatever they want. They can buff the ones that are bad. They can nerf the ones that are good. It doesn't matter. People are going to be upset because they really like, say, they play Arcane Mage in 7.0. They really wanted to play Arcane. Arcane was bad. Well, guess what? You have to play Fire. There was no way around it. Arcane was too bad to play in raids if you're competitive. Fire was just way better. And that's how the game's always been. And, people always say like, oh, it's not balanced to this game. They don't know what they're doing. But I hate to remind you about previous tiers, and I'm going to try to avoid doing so, but just go ahead and look back at previous tiers, guys, all right? Go ahead and look back at Arcane in Hellfire Citadel, for example. I don't see how anybody could have thought that was balanced, yet nobody seemed to complain about that, and nobody seems to remember complaining about that, that's for sure. So anyway, I think that the spec and class changes are, of course, a product of the expansion, changing them overall. I think the specs and classes in general are pretty well balanced, frankly. They make a lot of hotfixes and a lot of changes on the fly. Some aren't always in the best interest of the community, but frankly, I think people who are complaining about this are overreacting. Number 3, artifact power and the grinding of such. This is a wholly new concept introduced with Legion, something that's really never been in the game before. A near limitless grind that seems to be permeating every facet of the game. We're talking literally everything that you can do in the game in some way could affect artifact power. And then on top of that, we have the artifact knowledge system, which is meant to kind of act as a catch-up. So over time, it's easier to accrue and you don't grind your eyes off the first 5 days of the expansion and do everything thing there possibly is to do to get artifact power, you have an incentive to wait and do it at a slower pace. But we know people who play this game, and that's not how they operate. So one of the main complaints here is that the grind is indeed limitless, and it seems to be really pervasive. It's everywhere. It's you almost need it in every way. So I think a big problem with the system here is that you don't actually need it in every way. I understand a lot of people think you do, but there's been a lot of like breakpoints I see where people are like, oh, you don't have your second golden trait yet, like the first few weeks of the expansion. Oh, Lo, you don't have your third golden trait yet? Yeah, okay. Oh, Lo, you don't have your 35th point? Yeah. Oh, you don't have 3 weapons maxed out? It's like, okay, guys, just take a moment to relax, all right? I'm telling you now because I'm somebody who plays the game heavily, but I don't care about artifact power enough to play the game in a way that I don't enjoy. From my recollection and testing and experience, I've gotten more artifact power just from raiding and doing 5-mans that I've wanted to do for other things, like for gear, right? And you get more just from doing that. I don't go out and do every single freaking world quest to get artifact power every day of my life, you know what I mean? I have other things that I want to do with my life besides do that. So sure, that's a flaw with the system, 100%. 100%. People complain about that, and they are right to do so. They say, oh, you have to go out and do all these world quests to be able to get as much artifact power as possible. And this comes from, once again, a system without a cap, just like Mythic plus dungeons. But you understand why they did this, hopefully, right? They did this because in WoD, people said there was nothing to do. So this is what happens. This is what happens when you say stuff like that, okay? Blizzard has always been a company that flips 180 on everything. Oh, there's nothing to grind. All right, every rep is grind. What? We hate grinding. All right, reps are useless now. It's like, what? So they just flip back and forth on this, okay? So this is what's going to happen when you do stuff like this, like complain there's nothing to do in the game. They're going to add limitless shit to do. You can literally never complete artifact, at least in the first 6 to 10 months, you are never going to do everything that this game has to offer. It's just not possible because it is actually limitless. So I don't like the concept there. I think it's flawed, but I definitely do not agree that you need to be grinding every day of your life. Otherwise, you're not able to compete because the game is not balanced like that. What you're doing is like, when you're a millionaire grasping at pennies. You understand? It's like you have $1 million in the bank. You have all the tools you need to be successful in life money-wise, and you're still worrying about like $10. Oh, I got gypped at McDonald's today. They charged me an extra $1 for that McDouble. It's like, what? I don't understand. Like, why does this matter to you? I don't get it. So there's like 2 camps on this topic, right? People who are like super freaking hardcore and they're like, dude, we have to do Mythic Plus all freaking day because if we don't, we'll never get enough artifact power to compete. It's like, okay, that's a self-imposed restriction. You kill bosses, 5-10 years ago in greens, okay? You don't need to have 3 different weapons maxed at 35. You don't. It's not factual. That's you wanting to do that. And I understand, Blizzard places this in your hand, so what else are you going to do other than take it? But it's not actually needed to kill bosses in any way. And it's really not that substantial of an increase, okay? I understand the 35-point trait is incredible, 5%, but you will get it at some point, and Nighthold is still not even out yet. So if for some reason you don't have it before Nighthold, you're behind, no doubt about that. But with the 25 ranks of artifact knowledge, it should be easy to catch up. And then you have the other people who are like hyper casuals, and they're like, they don't even raid. They don't even do Mythic dungeons, let alone Mythic raiding. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so far behind in artifact power. This sucks. I have to play so much to be able to get it. It's like, no, you don't need it because you're not raiding, first of all. But if you raided, you would get like caches of like 150k per boss. You know what I'm saying? You get so much from clearing the raids each week. It's unbelievable how much you get. I get like almost a full level every week, even now, from the full raid clears, TOV and Emerald Nightmare, So I think a lot of the problems that are in this system are self-perceived once again, but there's things that Blizzard can do to make the changes, like make changes to the system, make it better. But in general, once again, I think people are just taking this way too serious. The system itself is actually really good for what it's worth. It makes the artifact feel like you're constantly upgrading it. It gives you something to do in dungeons, like Mythic Pluses especially, to get something out of that you might not even need gear from. Even if it Titanforges, you're still getting artifact power, etc. So I think it's a very good complement. It adds a lot of depth to all the other systems as well. It makes them more valuable in every way possible, and it completely addresses the thing that people had the biggest complaint of in Warlords of Draenor. Okay, now we're into the big guns here. Number 2, Titanforging. So before we start talking about this, I want to take a moment here to tell you what the Titanforge system is actually for, since a lot of people don't seem to understand that. The Titanforge system is in place so you can do content that normally would drop gear that you don't need and has a small chance of being gear that you do need. This works especially well in raids, but also very good with the Mythic Plus system. So you have an incentive to do Mythic Plus 2s at all, because for most people, the lower keystones without artifact power or Titanforged gear would be a complete waste of time, and there'd literally be no one looking to do them. If we're going back to Classic where +2 drops gear that's just objectively worse than a +4 or 5 or 6 or something like that, then what's the point in the +2? There's no point. So these two systems actually work hand in hand very well, if you ask me. But anyway, that's the point of Titanforging. Seems a lot of people don't understand that. So we're going to list the 3 main complaints that people seem to constantly becker about with the Titanforge system. And number 1 is that it's RNG on top of RNG. I hear this so often and it's freaking embarrassing to hear constantly. Let me tell you what actual RNG is, okay? RNG means that the stats are random entirely, right? It's not that the power of the piece is random. That is a different thing altogether. And a lot of people just seem to get really confused on this topic. There's nothing random about the Titanforge system. It's like winning the lottery, all right? You should not expect to be getting it. It's not like, well, the Titanforge system screwed me over. The piece is now worse than it's supposed to be. But this doesn't happen, right? So in like real RNG, a real roll of the dice is the middle roll is moderate, the low roll is terrible, and the high roll is awesome. That doesn't happen with the Titanforge system. Do you understand that? You either roll it and it's good, you roll it and it's amazing, or you roll nothing and it's exactly what you should have gotten. You understand? It's just on top of the previous gearing system that's been in the game for 13 years. So I don't see why anybody is upset about this. You literally just don't understand the purpose of it if you think that there's some massive RNG element here. And then this goes right into the second thing that people complain about all the time. It's just maddening. I have to grind content over and over just to get an upgrade. No, you can just do harder content and get an upgrade guaranteed. So people are talking about this in like 5-mans especially. This is one of the main complaints that people have about Mythic Plus. I didn't address it in the Mythic Plus section because it's actually not related to Mythic Plus. It's related to Titanforging, but people think it's related to Mythic Plus because they're idiots. Anyway, yes, they think, oh, I have to do Mythic Plus all day because this 860 piece that drops at the end might Titanforge to an 895. Yeah, good luck with that, dude. If you're going to spend the rest of your life doing that, have fun. I don't know. The game's not for you if you think that's how gearing works in it. Conversely, you can just go enter Mythic Trial of Valor and get an 895. You see what I'm saying? So the system is in place in a way that it should be a benefit when it comes. It's not something you should be expecting. You should be doing it and it should be like, whoa, that's awesome. Look how great this piece is. It's so great. I mean, I love it, dude. I freaking love the system for that reason because the first week we killed Nithendra Mythic, an 895 trinket dropped. And it was like, dude, that is such a freaking big play right there. I cannot believe we got so lucky. It's awesome. It feels amazing. And I think it's really rewarding when it's done right. And then this goes into the third thing. Oh, I hate getting a Titanforge piece that isn't an upgrade, but then I get a piece that could be an upgrade and it's not Titanforged. Right. So the problem is the gear, not the system here, right? When you have gear that is 10 item levels higher than previous gear and it's a downgrade, that means the gear was poorly made. It's not Titanforge's problem. And I think they're fully aware of this, right? So this is a major complaint, but it's not actually related to the Titanforging system. When you get a Titanforge piece that you don't want, then they made the piece poorly or your class is balanced poorly. Every spec should have 4 stats that are within a few percentage of each other. But for example, Holy Paladin, crit is just so valuable that if you don't have crit on the piece, you might as well not even consider it. This is a bad thing. Or it's a good thing if you like RPG elements and stats. So one way or the other, it's working properly. And I just don't understand how so many people are confused on this. It really is. There's thousands of people, millions of people that seem to be confused on this. They keep citing RNG, 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 Legion, blah, 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 RNG. Well, guess what, guys? There's nothing random about this. The only randomness is that it's a bonus. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's what you expected. If you're doing content that is dropping gear that you don't want, then stop fucking doing it. That's as plain as I can make it, guys. It really is. You do not need to be farming gear that is worse than what you're wearing, hoping to get something that's better than what you're wearing. That's not how the system was made. You're doing it wrong, okay? You can go do a raid just like every other tier, every other expansion, and get the piece that you want, or you could just get lucky every once in a while and get something that you didn't expect to get. That's the fact. I personally love the Titanforging system. The one thing I don't like is how gems factor into it. I think with Titanforging, you need to either get rid of gems or integrate them in some way because, for example, if I get a Titanforge piece, but then I had a Warforged piece with a gem on it, the Warforged piece with a gem is usually better, depending on what piece we're talking about here, right? Minus trinkets, I suppose. But yes, if I got a Titanforge 15 item level upgrade, but then I got a 5 item level upgrade with a gem socket, the Warforged piece is probably better. So there you go. Ran over, man. I have been waiting to get that off my chest for a long time now. I really love the Titanforging system. I'm so surprised that so many people are against it. I think it really, the best thing about it is it adds, like I have a reason to do stuff that I don't want to do. For example, a friend of mine's returned to the game. They want to do Mythic plus zeros. They haven't done any raiding, any content at all this expansion. They're excited to do it. Well, guess what? Typically, that's a waste of my time, but I'm going to do it because I enjoy the content, and you never friggin' know. All right, I settled down. Number 1, legendaries. Number 1, of course, is legendaries. There's no way it couldn't be. Everybody's got to complain about legendaries, and I'll agree with a lot of them. Most of the things on this list, I think, have a very good upside, and I feel that way about legendaries too. I'll explain that in a little bit, but let's talk a little bit about the main complaints, once again, that people have with legendaries. Number 1 is that you have no control when you get them, that they are the epitome of RNG, and yes, they are in this case. You don't have any idea when you're about to get it, you just get it randomly, and when you finally do, it's like you just got hit in the face. It was a big salmon, you know what I mean? Like slapped like right in the face like that, like you're some kind of bear. And that's not necessarily fun for a lot of people. A lot of people would prefer to gradually work towards it, and some, substantial way to notice that you're working towards it. There is, of course, the bad luck protection we'll talk about in a bit, but you don't know when that's accruing, you don't know how it's accruing, you don't know almost anything about it, and you don't know when the legendary is coming. Instead, people would rather say something like the old legendary system, where I have to collect, say, 100 of something, and then by the time I get to the 100th, I'm finally able to pick one of the legendaries. And that seems like a better system overall, but that's not what they wanted. What they wanted was BOE system from Classic. Welcome to the game, guys. Everybody complains about stuff. Oh, Classic was so much better. Well, here you go. Here's number 1 thing that was crazy about Classic. You can get best in slot gear, dude. Warden staff. Best in slot forever for Tank Druid in Classic. Forever. Better than everything in Nax. It's a freaking world drop. Level 50 piece. You know what I mean? That's a legendary right there. That's exactly what they wanted, and they accomplished it. Number 2, no control which one you get. All right, so this time it's even more pointed at, I get ones that I did not want. I would have preferred a different one. I'd rather work towards one that I actually want. And this is really a systemic issue here. This is a problem with the design of them, and a massive, massive issue in World of Warcraft Legion. And then number 3 is that all of these things are made much worse by having very bad or incredibly good ones. People say, oh, this one sucks. I freaking hate this one. Oh my God, I got the shit one. I'm going to delete. Like I saw a thread the other day. This made me freaking laugh. Somebody's like, hey, I got a bad legendary. Should I just create a new character? Yeah, you probably should. So the big issues with all 3 of these here, okay, is first of all, this system was not meant to be taken in this small of a microcosm, like this small of a sample size. People are looking at it, they're like, oh, I have 2 bad legendaries, might as well kill myself. It's like, no, you're gonna play this expansion for like 2 years, you'll get them all. You know that, right? Are you there? Did you kill yourself? Anyway, yeah, so yes, people are literally overreacting that hard. They think, well, I didn't get the 2 that I wanted, I might as well not be playing the video game anymore. That's it. I've lost my chance. But that's not true. You're supposed to be getting them over the course of the entire expansion. It's the only way to keep them relevant, right? The big change with this system is from the Classic idea that I like mused over there. There was only the one piece. You got it and that's it. You got the Cloud Keeper's leggings as a warrior and that's it. You got the Lionheart helm off the best in slot market and that's it. That's it. You wear that piece until the end of time, And with these, they're meant to be like that, but there's only 2 that you can equip, and there's, 10 or so that you're going to be able to use at some point. So you're meant to kind of try to change every once in a while. And I understand the idea behind it. They say, oh, well, there's some that are going to have a huge impact for defense, huge impact for utility, huge impact for raid, coordination, something like that. And then there's a few that are really big DPS increases. Guess which one everyone wants. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to freaking play like a healer when they're the DPS. They don't give a shit about their self. They don't care about protecting their self. 99% of the people only care about DPS, and I completely understand why. So here you go. Number 1 reason this, like the whole legendary system fails massively is because they designed them poorly. That's it. That's just a fact right there. What they should have done is created ones that are either only for DPS, probably not a good idea, or only for utility, probably a good idea. Make the stats on them strong like they are. I mean, we're talking about 9, very high item level pieces, 900 plus item level pieces here. You should want the stats anyway, but you don't want the secondary thing because you could have gotten one that's even higher value. And there's a lot of classes like this. We have Unholy DK, we have Demon Hunter, we have Monk, we have all kinds of different ones that are just incredibly strong. There's like a 10 to 20% DPS increase in some cases to have the right 2 legendaries. Having the worst 2 legendaries means you can't compete. But once again, there was a thread on MMO Champion the other day. Somebody posted looking at the comparison, the top ranks of people with the wrong legendaries compared to the top ranks of people with the legendaries. And there's plenty of people with the wrong legendaries beating people with the right legendaries. So once again, if you suck, it's because you suck. The gear is unfortunate. The Titanforging system is unfortunate. The artifact power is unfortunate. I hate to tell you this. You could improve yourself. All right. You don't need these things to be better at the game. A long time ago, there was no way to improve with gear. You know what I mean? The gear you got was the gear you got. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was no Titanforging. There was no legendaries. There was no nothing. There was nothing else to complain about other than I am not very good. And I think that's a big problem in the game going forward. But I do recognize that the legendary system has a massive, massive flaw in it. And it's gets expounded upon by other issues like the soft cap thing. That was a debacle. Bad luck protection has been handled very poorly. I really think what they need to do is, first of all, take out all the DPS legendaries. They can't now, it's way too late, but that's what they should have done in the get-go. They should have made you get something instead of bad luck protection. Every time you could have gotten something, a legendary, you get like a legendary chip, and eventually you form them into a legendary. Then you can pick the one you want, and all of these problems are solved. Well, that's that. Those are 5 things, maybe 6, depending if you count the PvP part, that I think Legion has done somewhat poorly. Could be better, I think, is the main thing to take away from this. Even though I like, some of the systems are actually pretty cool, there are definitely a few drawbacks of each of them, something that could be changed in each of them to make them better. And that's important, that Blizzard continues to move forward learning this. This is why I said at the beginning, I care about this expansion, care about this game, because a lot of the changes that come in this video game are harsh flips. Like I said earlier in the video, almost 180s on some of the topics, and I'm going to add a 0.0 now, and it's because of the community. I really think the community is the biggest thing that's doing a disservice for the game, and I'm part of the community, all right? Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say I'm above anybody, and I do my fair share of misinformation every once in a while, but a lot of people complain about things that they shouldn't be complaining about, guys. And what you're doing is you're clogging up the pipelines. So people are talking about, oh, their feedback's not read, the Blizzard doesn't listen, or like pointing an argument at Ian Hazakosis or Brian Halinka, like, these guys are inept, they're bad, they should die. It's like, you should probably go outside, man. I can't say it, like, I'm not even being sarcastic at this point. I'm being real, dead ass right now. If you are targeting an individual who works at Blizzard, $1 million company, a game the size that this game is, and you are telling me that they are not doing their job properly, actually you who are not doing your job properly. You understand? Because they're doing something that you probably don't even know. You don't even understand what their job is. You think you know what it is, but you don't. There you go, J. Allen Breck. Anyway, yes, you don't actually understand what their function is, all right? It is not to do what you want. I hate to tell you this, it really isn't. So if you're a Warlock who says, oh, I hate the way Warlocks changed, they're really fucking good right now, and they're gonna be even better in 715, but I fucking hate them, they ruining this game for me. That's not Ian Hazakosis' fault, man. It's really not. I hate to tell you this. And if you think, oh, RNG's ruining the game, I don't want to farm artifact power, I said there was nothing to do last expansion, but now there's too much to do, this game's shit. You're ruining the game yourself, man, you really are. And the community is what drives every single freaking change, man. Everything from Classic to Legion, literally every change this game has ever undergone has been to some degree from pressure. And you could tell this is true, because at BlizzCon they always do this. Every single BlizzCon when they announce features, they say, and we hear you guys didn't like reforging, whatever, so we took it out, and then everybody fucking cheers. Everybody fucking cheers. What a surprise. Everybody at BlizzCon actually wanted Reforging to be gone. Oh, but now it's gone and everybody thinks it should come back? What a shocker. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying, guys, is to just relax. Just take a moment here. 2017. Let's be serious here. Legion is fucking amazing, all right? You don't like it? I'm sorry to hear that. I think it's objectively the best launch we've ever had. The best first 4 months of an expansion ever, without any question. Already got an amazing 7.1. We're going to have an amazing Nighthold, and then 7.2 is looking to be awesome as well. So unless they massively fuck it up and Argus shit as well gets fucked up, I don't see how this isn't going to be the best expansion ever. And even if you don't like it, I think once again, it's your duty as a gamer to just chill out. All right, just relax. You're giving everybody a bad headache, really, and you're making yourself look bad, making the community look bad. Constant people make like just statements that are complete contradictory, and Blizzard has to listen. You're saying, oh, they don't listen to me. I wonder why, right? Because you got 2 people talking about complete contradictory things. I like this, I hate this. Well, who do you listen to? You know what I mean? So it's really pushing the game in a really poor direction. You're making them make changes that they think are good for the game, but are not actually good. And I don't know. I can't get over it. I feel like we're killing our own game here at this point. But anyway, if you guys have any questions about any of this shit, let me know. This was really an emotional video for me, something that I wanted to talk about for a very long time. So pretty long. Hope you guys stuck it out. But otherwise, see you guys in the next video.